So you got a new lens for your camera and you want to make sure you're photographing it at its absolute sharpest possible quality. Now, no matter the type of photography you do, whether it's landscape or products or portraits, whatever it is, you want sharp photos. In this video, we're going to talk about how to find your lens sweet spot quite easily. Hey, this is Scott Weidenkivowitz, a storyteller with a camera, talking about all the things photographers like you and I are thinking about. In this video, we are going to talk about the lens sweet spot. The lens sweet spot has kind of been this sort of like hidden passion project of mine. You know, I experimented with a website all about lens sweet spots and made some nice connections and relationships through it. And eventually it wasn't, the website itself wasn't that popular, so I just shut it down. However, it is a popular search term, so I know that you're watching this because you're curious about it. So I'm glad that I'm able to help you to pinpoint how to get your lens sweet spot. Now, why do you need to find your lens sweet spot? So you might have a lens like a 1.4, 1.8, a 2.8 lens, whatever it is, and you might photograph at those apertures. And that might be fine for some situations, especially low light, or if you want that heavy, shallow depth of field. But the problem with that is your lens is not its sharpest at those very, wide open apertures, those tiny numbers, those shallow depth of fields. While it might be buttery smooth with the background and everything to be blurry, it's not ideal for sharp photos. Now, this is especially true if you're using a macro lens. If you have a macro lens that's 2.8 and you are photographing a product close up at 2.8, it is going to be blurry majority of the photo. There might be one small section that is sharp, and that's fine, that's if that's what you're going for, and that's very shallow depth of field. But if you're photographing something where you need a wider range in focus, and you want to make sure that the lens is absolutely as sharp as it can be, then you don't really want that aperture. So let's talk about finding your lens sweet spot. So there is a tool that I highly recommend for every photographer to own, especially because every digital body that you get will work different with the lens. That means each Nikon D850 body will work different with a 35mm lens, a 50mm lens, and so on. You can have 5 35mm lenses and 5 Nikon D850 bodies. They will all act different. The same if they were Canons, the same if they were Sonys, and so on. That is why the manufacturers include lens corrections inside of the bodies that you can fine-tune your lenses. So the tool I recommend to figure out how to fine-tune your lenses is this one. This is called the Lensalign. Now, there are multiple versions of this. This is the Mark II. I think they're already on Mark III, and there's a long version if you have really long lenses. But basically what it is a very well calibrated system where it's perfectly aligned, and you have a bunch of holes and targets in here, and the two holes that are right here back up to little red circles back there. And there's also holes in the back. And basically you would align yourself, and I'm going to show you this in a moment. You're basically going to align yourself, and then once you know you're aligned, you're actually going to take a picture at different apertures, focusing on Mr. Zero and focusing on that plane. Basically, Zero and this plane are on the same focal length. Now, this isn't made of cardboard. It's not made of any, cheap materials that's going to bend or warp or, things like that. It's actually made of quite durable, sort of like plasticky type materials. It even has a tripod socket on the bottom, so you can put it on a tripod and level it as you need, or put it on a flat table. So I'm going to switch around and set this up so that you can actually see how to go about this perfectly. Here we go. First things first, let's get a tripod plate on the bottom of this so I can align it. Now, I am not screwing it in, super tight. I'm just doing it by hand. It's not like I'm moving it around and stuff. It's going to be quite still. Now you can see that I've got the Lensalign, sort of horizontal, lined up. All I need to do now is sort of tilt the camera and make sure that it is perfectly. And we are actually going to move this in. I want to be able to get this as close as possible so that we can do some arranging. All right, so right now, if you look, you can actually see the red behind here. Now, that is the main target. We want to also get the macro target aligned as well. To get the macro target aligned, you might have to do a little tilting on this side. Now, this is not perfectly level, only because, well, I didn't level it. Let's do that. Okay, so right now, we could actually see red in both of these holes. Now, you can't see the red 100%, but the red is peeking through, so I am satisfied. I know that this will be extremely precise. Now, the only thing that we have to do is to photograph, capturing that, circle, and we photograph at every aperture the lens offers. Now, right now, I am using the 24 to 120 Nikon f4 lens, and I am zoomed all the way to 120. Let me show you what 24 looks like. Now, I could do it at 24 as well. If I really want to, I could do it at 24 as well, and maybe I will, but for the sake of this video, I'm gonna show you it zoomed in all the way. So we are ready to go at 120 millimeters, and I am going to show you what it looks like, how we would do this if we were actually taking pictures along the way. Now, of course, I'm not going to be taking pictures as I do the video, but you will get the idea. So here we are at f4. I would then close up an aperture. Now we're at 4.5. Now we're at 5. Now we're at 5.6, and you can see the video is getting darker. That is because I am photographing video, and the ISO is up as much as it can go. That is what I'm allowing my camera to go for video audio ISO. 6.3, 7.1, and so on. Let me open back up to f4. So I would basically do that all the way to f22 and just have a whole bunch of photos. The next step would be to review all these photos to see which one is actually the sharpest and actually focused on 0, not front focusing and not back focusing. Now, you could do this manually, or you could use software also made by Michael Tapes called Focus Tune. And by doing that, you import all the JPEGs from these photos, the JPEGs of these photos, you import it to the software, it analyzes it, and tells you exactly which is the sharpest. Now, once you have that all said and done, everything is completely done, you can then go into your camera and set this specific lens to either +1, +2, whatever it is, -1, -2, whatever your results come up as, you can fine-tune your camera for that lens. But what else is really cool is it can tell you the software, and also your testing will actually tell you which aperture is the sharpest for your lens. That's pretty neat, right? So not only are you going to calibrate your camera to your lens to make sure it's extremely sharp, but you're also going to find out just naturally which is the sharpest. Now, typically your lens sweet spot is about 2 to 3 stops more than your widest aperture. So if you have a 2.8 lens, your lens sweet spot might actually be around the 4 to 5.6 range. It really depends on the lens, how it's made, how the optics are, and so on. If you have a 1.4 or 1.8 lens, then your lens sweet spot is going to be most likely somewhere between 2.8 and f4. Now, that's just a sort of guide, an overview, guide, whatever you want to call it. It's general. But if you want to get true accurate results, then you need to do real testing with a well-calibrated chart and system that you can ensure its absolute sharpness and alignments and whatnot with quality materials, and ideally use the software to go with it. Now, I have to say, I did mention that lens sweet spots were sort of a project of mine a couple years ago, and I do want to say thank you to Michael Tapes. We had a really great conversation when I was starting that project. I actually had a lens align, and he actually supplied me with the Mark II version of the lens align, so I was able to upgrade to it. And I also use his focusing software, and it's just amazing. I've used it on all the camera bodies that I've owned and currently own, and will continue to use it on all future bodies and lenses because it's just that powerful and that precise. If you like this video, click that subscribe button below now. I publish new videos every Monday and Thursday whenever possible. You don't want to miss it. There's also a bell button. If you click that, you'll be notified when I have a new video. So that's pretty cool too, right?